Next, we're fortunate to have with us today Bob Cochran, Director of External Affairs for the Ronald Reagan Institute and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation in Washington, D.C. Please come forward. Bob was co-founder of the Reagan National Defense Forum as well. A graduate of Cal State LA, he tells us that he has a double major. One in political science and the other in baseball. Bob gave up his chance to play for the White Sox out of college to start his government career. So I'll let him tell you the rest of the story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Well, it's very exciting to be here. What a great crowd. This is really my first trip to Naples, Florida before. I work out of Washington, D.C. for the Ronald Reagan Institute, which is under the Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. My first question is in this audience here, how many people, if you raise your hands, that have actually worked in the Reagan administration, and I've got set up here, worked in his campaign or was part of his governorship in California? How many people here? Okay, so, second question is how many people have visited the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California? Great show of hands. So, the Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is the 501c3 charitable arm of the Reagan Presidential Library. All presidential libraries create a charitable arm for the purpose of raising private donations, private funds for supplementing the mission of promoting and preserving the legacy of the respective president. In our case, the foundation has gone above and beyond by creating also a Washington, D.C. presence called the Ronald Reagan Institute, of which I work for directly under the umbrella of the Reagan Presidential Foundation. Now, out in California, our mission in promoting President Reagan is twofold. One is that we host many programs. For example, we have a number of young people, and that is a big part of our mission, is to teach them, to educate them, to share with them about President Reagan's legacy, his vision, his values, the way he governed during his years as president, and also back to when he was governor of California. I happen to be someone that at 10 years old in Southern California, sat in a parking lot, watched this actor run for governor alongside Senator George Murphy and appear at a campaign event. That was impactful to me. Our family wasn't very political, but it was amazing and I have it ingrained in my mind of seeing President Reagan up there on stage campaigning in 1966 for his first run for governor. I then spent 9 years in California working for a member of Congress from California, defending the Reagan policies in the 1980s. And then fast forward to 2012, as I was leaving, working for 20 years as chief of staff, and I'm sorry, the congressman, I'd love to connect with him sometime. As the chief of staff for Buck McKeon, I helped found an event that is now that takes place at the Reagan Presidential Library called the Reagan National Defense Forum. Again, our mission is to promote President Reagan's legacy. Our mission is to educate and touch people. And the reality is that, like myself, Charlie. We're getting older. So we need to connect with millennials. We need to connect with Gen Zers. We need to connect with the generations after that. And that is something that we are doing by reaching out at the 7th grade or middle school, reaching out to the high schools and bringing those kids to the Reagan Presidential Library in California to find out more about what President Reagan stood for. Likewise, about 10 years ago, the Board of Trustees of the foundation and Mrs. Reagan came up with the idea of having a Washington, D.C. presence called the Reagan Institute. As in Mrs. Reagan's words, I want to bring Ronnie back to Washington. And what we do at the Reagan Institute, where we have 14,000 square feet of event and office space just a couple blocks from the White House, is put on programming. We are more focused on pushing out President Reagan's legacy. We reflect, but we are looking to the future. And what we have been able to accomplish has been tremendous so far. Now, I know many of you don't know anything about the Reagan Institute. We've been kind of a well-kept secret. We're trying to change that now. Part of the reason why I'm down here, and again, thank you, Judy, for inviting me, Noreen Fuller, who has helped orchestrate this. But our mission at the Reagan Institute is to make an impact in Washington, bringing back some of the ideals, the vision of President Reagan in Washington, D.C., reaching out to young people, but also working with various decision makers, influencers in and around Washington. We're very excited about what we can accomplish. And we kind of use this mantra. We don't necessarily, as we put on our programming, we reflect a little bit, but we're again looking to the future. What we don't do is say, well, what would Reagan do? Because we don't have him around to ask his advice. But what we do and the way we look at our mission is what would Reagan expect us to do? And that is how we are trying to make an impact. So hopefully you will hear more about us, but I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words here and just enlighten you about the mission of both the foundation, but also the Ronald Reagan Institute in DC. Thank you now.